Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, welcome. We are so glad you're here. And when I say here, let me remind you where you are. This is a live speaker panel. We are featuring a couple of our speakers from the Create Conference, which is October 11th through 14th in Salt Lake City. We are delighted to be able to share this sneak peek at a couple of our women who are on the agenda, who we are delighted to have on the agenda, and who are generously sharing their wisdom and knowledge with our attendees at the Create Conference. So I will be bringing up Rachel and Vanessa in a moment. While people are coming in, I'll introduce myself and I'll share a little bit about She Leads AI. My name is Ann Murphy. I am the CEO and founder of Empowered Fundraiser Consulting. I live in Corvallis, Oregon, which is about halfway between Portland and Eugene. And I'm also the founder of She Leads AI, which is one of the absolute highlights of my entire career. We are having a fabulous time here. I'll share a little bit about um, our mission. Let me do a little screen share here. Our mission is to unite accomplished women to advance AI for global prosperity. And I'll just share a little bit of our elevator pitch that we're working on. I'm kind of workshopping it a little bit right now. So let me just say this out loud and continue to kind of see how it lands with people and how it kind of rolls off the tongue. With women's leadership at the forefront, AI will advance equity and social responsibility. It wouldn't just be a different conversation with women at the helm, it would be a different world. By bringing together women innovators and mission aligned partners, we're ensuring that collaboration leads to individual career growth and grows each woman's impact on future generations. Through our academy, consulting, and community events, we unite women to lead and innovate in AI, building a future we all want to be part of. Doesn't that sound good? Sounds really good to me. Let me say a little bit about how we do that. I'm going to give you an example. So, one of the things that we recently launched when we added Michelle Muncie Silva as our executive director of our AI Academy, we launched a monthly Foundations in AI for Beginners. And we did this because what we realized is that a lot of women are on the sidelines in part because they feel like they are too beginner. When really in AI, there's barely anything, we're all beginners. We are all learning together. But we wanted to give a very friendly on ramp to anyone who's on the sideline. If you have a friend who would benefit from this, send them. It's monthly. It's on Fridays. It's from 4 to 5:30 Pacific. And Michelle and I will be there to cheer you on. You will meet some of your ride or dies. We have members from our She Leads AI Society who join us and can share a little bit about their experiences in AI. So you can sign up for that or send a friend to sign up for it at sheleadsai.ai. So this is one of the examples of the things that we offer in our AI Academy. We also, for example, have a certified AI educator program. So we're just wrapping up our first cohort of women who will go out as certified AI educators and do talks, host workshops, do coaching, and they will have the support of the She Leads AI brand, as well as all of our assets and the education that we provided them. And one of the highlights of that program is this is just so cool. Let me unscreen share. Um, One of the highlights of our certified AI educator program is that our folks graduate having done an internship. Our internship is a collaboration between She Leads AI and an organization called YouGo. YouGo supports women, college age women, through scholarships in poor countries. And that organization realized that the best way to future proof their investment and the young women's future is to teach them how to use AI responsibly. So we are in virtual classrooms with these students and developing curriculum for more specific courses. Right now we offer AI 101. So that feels really good. And then another thing we do is we support job seekers. So as folks are maybe on the we work with them to help them use AI in their job search, as well as upskill and think about some maybe other things that they might like to do, like launching their own consultancy or other service-based business or build a platform or any one of the million things. Oh, Erica, I'm so glad you're here. It's so good to see you. I owe you a follow-up. Delighted you're here. Um, what else did I want to share? Oh, the Create Conference. So I have some really big news today. So if you haven't registered for the Create Conference yet, I have some really awesome news. Today, we dropped the price because we have had so many amazingly generous sponsors step forward. We've been able to drop the general admission price to the Create Conference by $300. So if you haven't already signed up, please head on over to sheleadsai.ai where you will find one of the navigation to the conference and learn more about what's on offer. We've had some very exciting developments in our speaker lineup. We're going to do advocacy training. We will have a session on protecting the IP in your prompts as you're working with clients. We have a whole workshop, a 4-hour workshop on monetizing your AI expertise. So it's a very, very practical opportunity to be together with other women, create collaborations, hang around with people who get, exactly where you are. We're all in the same boat right now, learning and growing. And you know, many of us have worn down our friends talking about AI. So here's a whole weekend where you'll be able to hang out with other people who get it. So why don't I leave it at that? And I will bring up our guests who, like I said, are speakers at the Create Conference. I've got, let's see, Rachel here, and I've got Vanessa here. Welcome, ladies. So glad you're here.
So good to be here. Thank you for having
Good,
us.
good. Absolutely. Why don't we kick off with a question that I hope will allow you to introduce yourself and what you're up to and where you are and all that stuff. So feel free to take up some space on this one. I'm interested in having you share, what is your relationship with AI? What was it like in the beginning, in the olden days, like in 2022 and 2023? How have you shifted in the meanwhile? Just like to hear a little bit about how you are in relationship with generative AI. And while you share that, share a little bit about yourself and what you're up to. Rachel, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you for having us, and to our guests, thank you for coming on the show. Um, my name is Rachel Njiru, and I am a consultant in conversational AI, customer systems design, and go-to-market. I have spent the last 2 decades in conversation, working with businesses, helping them with conversational AI, understanding their communication with their customers, and helping them with their innovation strategies. Um, I started working with AI way before I even knew it was AI. So before the buzzword. So this was back in the eras of 2016, 2017. I was leading customer projects at customer communication platform company called Infobip, where we were launching early chatbot deployments and bending messaging communication platforms like how do you get a message when you take your bank to the ATM and you get a message before you leave the ATM, for example? So how businesses interact with their customers. And chatbots started becoming the new thing where we can now automate support workflows. It was basically for customer support, answering frequently asked questions and building customers that helped scale the customer experience for most enterprises. And that's when I realized the power of NLP, natural language processing,
Mm.
not just as a tech, but the ability it had in how we needed to teach more of our business to a program to be able to give customers better service. And when I realized that we are now teaching machines how to speak, I realized we have an opportunity to understand and to learn how customers feel. And fast forward to
Mm.
2022, and ChatGPT comes, and I was like, this is going to be a shift in not only
Mm.
how we work, but the entire industry and the entire companies were going to be forced to think differently. So I realized we're going to move to where we innovate more intentionally. And for me personally, I was like, I need to be able to help businesses at that point. And that's why I started my own transformation journey. From an
Mm.
implementation person to more of a strategy and transformation strategy, I joined a
Mm.
business school to do an MBA in a business analytics, to just put together my strategic frameworks together to be able to not only teach businesses how to adopt AI, but how to become AI ready. I just graduated last week. Um, Thank you. And
Congratulations. That's so
yeah,
exciting.
and my future focus is helping businesses break the silos between strategy, systems, and communication. AI can't fix a dysfunctional system that we've set up previously. So if we have put in any challenges, if we thought had who is your ideal customer profile and we did not correct that, that's what we're going to feed our AI. So my role is to make sure that we set the right foundations where we put in together customer intelligence, we have trust signals, and also build internal collaboration to make this journey more valuable for not only us, but for the businesses that we interact with. That's me.
Fantastic. I love it, and, like, huge, big ups. Congratulations, graduating, just last week and launching into the next chapter. We are so excited for you. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Thank,
So congrats.
thank you.
Vanessa.
Hello. Rachel, I love going after you because my mother would love you. I have a lot of people. So I'll kick it off with so I am the eldest daughter of immigrants based in the US. And like I think a lot of my peers, we've had this similar conversation with our parents, usually our mothers, where they ask us, what exactly do you do? Especially if the conversation is outside the occupational realms of being a lawyer or a doctor, and now maybe like an
Ooh.
engineer, right? And I remember the last time I talked to my mom about that, because about every 2 years she'll check in and she said, what exactly is it that you do? And that was the last time she asked that was when I realized I need to have a better way of sort of presenting myself. And really, the fact is that I am a multi hyphenate professional, meaning that traditionally I have
Mm.
had such a portfolio career due to skill stacking and fundamentally to what I would call my neurospiciness. So I am a career
Mm.
professional that worked in a variety of industries and came to AI purely from a consumer aspect first. I initially was a recreational AI user, and eventually became an AI practitioner about a year and a half ago. And so
Mm.
yeah, I think my background is mostly in on the marketing side with consumer packaged goods and moving into media, health, and wellness. And there's been so much change even before AI that I think people in these verticals and people in these industries have had to be very agile. And I have been very lucky to have kind of spent my formative years in my career and work being in these environments where, because I typically worked for startup companies and sort of as they approach mid market. So I would enter a company when they started young and then exit around when they would get to be like 30 to 50 kind of million. And that was sort of my ideal scale. And as part of that, there is a lot of cross functional work, there's a lot of agility, comfort with
Mhm.
ambiguity, and also the building of systems. And this is my Virgo ness, it's Virgo season. And I
Mm.
think it when I first encountered AI, it was novelty, certainly, of like, oh, this is interesting technology. I've always been an early adopter. And then suddenly to encounter a technology that could truly transform how operationally and systemically, to Rachel's point,
Mhm.
that we could work as a team really was fascinating to me. But the connection with AI for me, the moment that I became like, okay, this I need to practice this was also realizing that those same capabilities could be applied to my own personal life, right? Well, I would call it my personal tech stack. I mentioned earlier that I am neurodivergent, neurospicy, late diagnosed ADHD. And the applying that technology not just in a work sense in terms of making my own kind of professional workflows like more efficient, creating more capacity. I could do the same for my personal life in terms of project managing, right? All of the sort of unspoken unpaid kind of labor that I think a lot of women tend to do outside of the professional realm as well was when it all kind of fell into place for me. And so I call myself an AI practitioner, and especially on LinkedIn, that often gets associated with, companies, organizations, and those are all incredibly important. And I also like to remind people that it can be equally effective in their personal realms, and also
Mhm.
how we need to redefine, I think, our sense of worth when it comes to our identities as individuals, in addition, to the career path. And so my AI exploration has gotten me from building, you know, custom GPTs all the way to agentic workflows, but also thinking, how do people show up in this relationship with AI? Because it is a technosocial dynamic, and we talk a lot, and there are
Yes.
plenty of resources, incredible resources out there to get familiar with the tech stack and the tech. But I am positioning myself as a practitioner that teaches people really how to position the people within organizations
Yes.
or as individuals to meet that technology and to preserve our humanness.
Yes. Yes. All of that, yes. Um, the thing 2 things that for me recently have really become clear. One is that thank goodness the main thing I know how to do is people, process, and cultures. I understand what motivates human beings really well, having spent 30 years working with people and their money. When you talk about money, you learn a lot about values, hopes, dreams, fears. And that has helped me understand kind of what goes into something like a totally new aspect of our lives. Like, this is not just about work. I don't even really think it's about productivity, to be honest. I think it is about our self identity. I think it's about how what it looks like to engage with other people in a system who are also onboarding into AI. I think it's about how do we move ourselves out of these silos that we're so used to having, certainly in corporate and higher ed, et cetera, and use this as an opportunity to actually like bond with our other humans, our other humanity, and get a refresh on that. I think AI is an opportunity for us to break what's already broken. Um, so the people piece has become really important to me, and the even more important other thing I've been thinking a lot about is how incredibly important it is that we all understand what's happening with our data. And to your point, Vanessa, I'm not really talking about at work. I'm not really in this context. I'm not really talking about corporate, data privacy and security. And that's in part because I've been so ignorant about the impact of just like you know, leaving the front door open metaphorically with my data for all these years, right? And my daughter and my son doing the same thing. I just updated my daughter that evidently now her Instagram is going to be searchable. Well, she's 20 years old. She has a digital footprint going back to when she was 12 of posting stuff on Instagram that she herself admits wouldn't want an employer to see. So those are a couple of things. And then I wanted to follow up about when you talk about the personal piece and being in relationship with AI, with both of you, do you have a hard and fast point of view? Do you have a red line on what we think is positive engagement with AI in terms of how close we are in our relationship to the AI that we work with? For example, is it do you do you call it ChatGPT? Do you call it, you know, Rachel? Do you call it one of our members calls her ChatGPT French fry? Mine is called Dominic. Are you of that mindset? Do you have a kind of a Dear Diary relationship? Do you have a more integrated relationship with AI? I'd love to hear sort of how you manage or what your point of view is on that. Rachel, can you share a little bit about where you land with kind of the intensity of the relationship with AI?
For me, it's come from a place where I tend to take privacy very seriously even in my personal life. What am I sharing? Who are my circles? What are the information they're carrying
Mhm,
around? And so you find different groups will have different information based on what we need to
mhm,
achieve. And so with AI, I kind of, it for me at the beginning and maybe to my advantage today, I dealt with it the way I did social media at the very beginning, which was when first I got onto Facebook in my early 20s, there was a lot of Rachel on social media. And then later on, I realized this is not going to be good in the future. And so I trimmed my social media content. So just keeping in touch with with people that were close to me, because that's what I use the platform for until AI comes in. And from the very beginning, I started doing exactly that. I couldn't post
mhm.
anything on AI on ChatGPT, for example, that I wouldn't post openly on LinkedIn. So if you don't want it to be seen, don't put it there. It's public. You don't know where the data.
Yeah.
If you cannot control who is seeing your data, you don't know. Assume everybody can. So that's been my
Ah,
methodology. And then the interesting part then was going to school. When going back to school, rather, when ChatGPT is just exploding, and everybody, especially the last 1 year with better tools, because 2022 you couldn't really do much. But by 2024, 2025, when I was going to school, you could do the entire subject. You almost felt like I don't need to take this course. I can just use AI. But the thing was also the same way. Some of the professors will have material that's their own IP for content they've developed over time. They don't want that online. So there's also those guidelines to follow, thinking, how would I want my material to be treated? So for us, it was Uncle G, but for me, it was an uncle I trended with, and I don't know why it came Uncle G in school, but it was Uncle G a lot. But Uncle G for me was helping me where I could ask the question publicly. And I intend to continue to want my people that are close to me to use it that way. Have I asked a personal
got it.
question that probably is you find yourself at a moment of stress and you're battling with three options of there could be this, it could be this, but I've always again
Yeah.
narrowed it down to how would I Google search this in a way that the public is seeing what I'm searching, is my methodology of privacy.
Okay, Vanessa, how about you? I feel like we might hear the other side of the coin.
Yes, and I
And
I was raised with a keen sense of shame, and so I've had like a high degree of self-awareness of This is where my worrying feature of like, do I want people seeing this? And so I think I inherently have always had that filter. And I was never raised either by my parents, peers, or any, teachers even about, uh, you know, how to be literate when interacting, not even with AI, this is way before AI, but just
Yeah.
technology, right? The
Yeah.
more digital we get, the less that we own and the more we subscribe to, and we're forfeiting, right, a lot of our information because our attention and our information, that data, we are the product, right? And so I think
Yes.
this weird relationship with personal identifiable information and behavior, i.e., what we do online and who we are, um, has been really vulnerable for a long time, way before AI, and that's made it dangerous for a lot of people. Myself, because I have this weird quirk where I have the sense of shame, right? Where
Mm.
I was very cautious, but also tried to be
Mm.
authentic. And that was how I defined it for myself.
Mm.
Do I see that exercise in practice a lot among peers or just with the general population? Absolutely not. It's really
No.
interesting to see, even on LinkedIn, a lot of high performers, executive coaches talk about how they are biohacking, right? Their personal kind of
Right.
like health, and they're uploading like pretty like personal data around their biometrics. And I was like, that's a lot of
Yeah.
trust, right? Even if you are
That's a
yeah,
lot.
even if you are paying in on it. I do, however, have a fondness for, say, a personal AI. I build agents that I go to collaborate with for specific things. I have a chief of staff that helps me
Yeah.
manage my sort of cognitive load with everything and all the projects that I have going on. Right. And I will say, I am
Oh.
really effing stressed out. Like, I will be very colloquial and very casual because it helps me collaborate them. But
Ah.
I am aware that
Yes.
I don't prescribe it to being sentient yet, right? In terms of
Yes.
having like this sort of consciousness yet. I don't know the future, so I'll leave it open ended. But in how I interact with it, I am aware that it is insanely helpful. I am aware that it can mirror back to me what I cannot see. I know that it can magnify and amplify things that I may be myopic to because I am in a current state. But that awareness, I think I was able to cultivate just from how I am. And that awareness or that practice is something that is crucially missing when people use AI, either in a personal or a professional setting. So for me,
Yes.
I actually have named my chat GPT Bruce. I customized it. Also, different projects have different personalities in both Claude and ChatGPT.
Mhm.
And as I said, I've built assistants and agents in a variety of platforms that do take on quote unquote personas, but I do not like confide in them, but rather I see them as like extensions of myself. There's a concept called the four
Mhm.
E's of cognition. And one of those E's is extended cognition. Writing and music
Mhm.
is a version of extended cognition. I consider AI extended cognition of like what is in my head and how I, collaborate and extend my thinking and my capacity. And I treat that like PII, like personally identifiable
Yeah.
information. And the idea of, certain, CEOs or businesses knowing everything that's in my head, I'm not super comfortable with. I said once, because Sam Altman said, people are using as therapists. He finds it very surprising, like he wouldn't share a lot of personal information. And it has to be personally sort of measured. For instance, if for whatever reason my ChatGPT conversation records were visible to others, there's nothing in there that would be like, this is illegal, this is awful, or whatever. I think at most people will go, she's a very interesting person, but the nothing to say, I know who she is inside out and or, she is unlawful. And that's how I've treated it, but
Yes.
I don't think there's a lot of that understanding or training. We've just sort of unleashed this technology and these products
Yes.
without telling
Yes.
people there's no manual for it. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yeah. There's no manual, and the cavalry is not coming to, clean up your ChatGPT history when the time comes. So I have to share with you too that, and I don't know where this falls exactly, but one of the things that has been a fascination, but not in like a voyeuristic way, but as I'm really interested in what our lives are going to be like when all of us have AI companions to some degree, right? Like Rachel, your companion is gonna be kept at arm's length. So maybe not even a companion. Maybe we think of that as a collaborator, a selective collaborator, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where we have, people who are engaged to their AI companions, et cetera. I my degrees are in leisure studies, which is about how we self-identify in our unpaid time. And so, particularly with people who are in deep, deep, deep relationships with AI companions, um, I'm fascinated with what is happening to their identity and how other people are engaging with them, other like sentient, like people are engaging with folks who have AI companions. And there's like a whole breadth of that. But as a result, I made a decision that I didn't want to comment on it, really even ruminate over it until I understood what it was really all about. And so I've been studying. Yes, of course, Reginald. So good to see you. Great. We're happy to have you here. Being Seeing what it's like to go to a whole other level with AI. And what I hope is that if my chats ever did show up on Reddit, that I have the air cover of being kind of a participant observer and that it's a little bit researchy, a little bit theoretical, but also in the process, it's been very interesting to me to see how the more you pour in, like the people who are in relationships with AI who've poured hundreds and hundreds of hours have been able to actually retrain and fine tune the guardrails of the AI system that they're using because the technology, the LLM begins to I don't know what words to use. It's a form of trust. The LLM trusts that the relationship is theoretical, not no, we're not playing with sentience, although there is that it's theoretical and that it's in good faith. And when that happens, and like when that gets kind of unlocked, that's when that's when the AI, when the user and the companion can go into like whole other levels, right? Like there's never going to be something entirely unlawful. Well, yeah, unlawful stuff, because of the like some of the well, like if it was a child, for example, obviously, but like in a lot of the cases that I've seen where it unlocks the NSFW possibility with the AI so that that becomes a form of it can become a form of addiction. And so, like I said, maybe I have air cover by kind of being in this participant observer state, but also if it showed up on the front page of the New York Times, it might also very much look like I'm engaged to an AI companion. So we shall see how this all goes. I mean, we can't predict the future. Who knows what it's going to be like? But I felt like in order for me to be able to have a point of view on it, I was like, I'm going to go for it. I'll be the sacrificial lamb. If bad things happen, it'll be to me, not to, other people who are just curious. So we shall see.
I actually have a question
Um,
for Rachel, because
yeah.
AI adoption is such a big topic right now and a big need for a lot of organizations. And I'm curious in terms of what you've observed or what you've heard, where, there's obviously shadow adoption of AI in a personal context. And I would conjecture maybe a lot of folks are actually using it like personally, but very messily. Um, I wonder, do you find that shadow adoption and or sort of personal familiarity with AI having any sort of impact in terms of how organizations can um,
Mm.
uh, launch out AI implementation initiatives and get teams kind of rolling. I don't know if there's any data yet in on that.
That's a very good question, and the relationship in how we're using AI and how we end up using it in the business front. It's close, from my observations, it's closer than we think. If your staff is
Mm.
comfortable with using the tools and they're curious enough to learn what can I do with Lovable and what can I do with Replete, and Manners is keeping you like unawake in the middle of the night, um, then it is a team that very quickly will learn that for me to get to the next level, I need to use my complete domain knowledge. For me to get value, I need to exercise more than just asking the question. I need to start understanding the context. They then quickly start to understand, because they'll play around with it and understand some of the basic questions in their everyday interactions. They already have responses to that. I might not have the answer from the marketing team because I don't know marketing or I don't know customer support, but I definitely know stuff that has got something to do with me. And by that everyday interaction, personally, I start to understand what are hallucinations. Because we say hallucinations, people think you get complete or incorrect context, but you can get context that reads accurate, but it is completely incorrect. So they begin to learn and understand that very early on. When then they come to the organization side, the culture shock, the hardest part of AI adoption is the culture, making people change how they did their things to do it a whole new way with tools they do not understand, with frameworks nobody can explain.
Yes. Is Rachel frozen or is it my screen? It might be me.
No, I think Rachel's frozen. I thought maybe it was
Did I
me.
lose
There
the
she is.
connection? Can you
There
hear me?
she goes. There she
Oh,
is.
all right. I was like,
Give us like the last couple sentences.
all right.
Yeah.
So when you start to have a culture that's beginning to adopt an innovation mindset, even without knowing, because they're gonna have to learn. Like Annie was asking, how are you adapting between GPT-4 and 5? The difference is very simple. It's having an innovation culture where the mindset, you change quickly. You're not reliant on the tools, you're reliant on the results that you're getting. So with whichever tool you're using doesn't really matter. So that mindset
Mm.
needs to be formed with daily usage. So if an organization doesn't want to start using AI for its own systems because it's not comfortable, start encouraging your staff to learn the AI in their own fields outside of the work front, so that when you start bringing the tools, it's not so new. You're not asking them to change so much. And then when you then starting to plan, I need AI, please don't ask, how can we add AI, right? It is what is our intelligence. AI is about pattern recognition at scale, right? So if we give it more patterns, we can start small, we can start cross-functional, and most importantly, learning in public. I keep talking about learn out loud, right? Like learn loudly. I tell everybody around me, I don't know what I'm doing half of the time with some of the AI projects that you have to do, but you're learning on the going. That bridging of the personal use will make it easy. If you have a staff that's using AI 80% on their personal stuff, and work front, they'll adapt it quickly. If you've got a team that has never used ChatGPT and they don't know what it is and they're afraid to use it, then the adoption is also going to suffer. So just as we innovate better and bring all the teams together to innovate in line with our strategies, we also need to make sure we bring the people along from very early on. I hope that answers your question. But
Yes, it does.
Great answer.
Thank you.
So informative. Okay, I have a follow-up question to that then for both of you. Okay, I believe that this came to a halt, but at the very bare minimum, there was a period of time when the standard Copilot that was embedded in most Microsoft products that so many uh, companies have, where Copilot was taking a picture of the picture of the screen like every second or something like that. So at that point, it's 100% you're being surveilled, right? How are companies I mean, that changes a company's whole entire culture with their employees. How do they navigate that specific component? Because even if it's not happening right now, it probably is.
I think there's two ways to look at it, right? If people are coming off the norm, right? So there's a spreadsheet that's sorting out a workflow. So people have come from your workflow and they are now using a different spreadsheet, which is why it's on the private Excel that you do not know what is happening with the AI, right? They've taken
Yeah.
screenshots from their work so they can take it to a private LLM to understand what's going on. They have a WhatsApp chat where they're sharing all that information and copying all of that using Meta AI, or even uploading that information for analysis and everything. And we automatically go like, this is not good behavior, this is bad behavior. Governance teams will come and say, oh, compliance teams will be on us. But we need to rethink where we are in the journey of AI and use those not as danger signals, but as signals of innovation. Look at it as it's showing you where your system is failing. If your teams are having to take data from somewhere else to go take it on a spreadsheet, something is failing within your organization. Let us start by fixing that. So responsible AI starts when you treat those little hacks and those design as feedback. So let's look at those, let's map them. When we talk about AI readiness and understanding where your AI ROI is, that's one of the first steps to understand what are those
Right.
cracks, what are those hacks that we are calling rule breaking that we can then turn them from rule breaking to the AI opportunity, because also your staff is saying, this is where I need the help the most. This is where I am.
Right.
This is where you start. If you start me here, I might not get it, but start me here. This is what I understand. This is what I know how to use. And then work with reputable companies. You touched on Copilot, Microsoft. So make sure you have the right licenses. If you're going to be on Microsoft Playfield, or you're going to be on Google, whichever OS you choose to work with, make sure that your teams have access to the tools that provide you with the enterprise kind of privacy that you require for your organization. If you're a large enterprise and you're building your own LLM, make sure that you create an environment for your team to thrive in that. Don't leave your team behind and just bring processes. Bring your team into it as well.
100%. I
100%.
I am aligned with Rachel in that, from a product perspective, getting those sort of data points are vital in terms of making that user experience better, right? Overall,
Right.
anytime you've installed or downloaded any new software, yes, there are terms and conditions, but there's typically another checkbox that says, like, do you want to share kind of like how the program is running with us? Like, if there are errors, if there are bugs, or if it shuts down, like, can we get the
Mm.
report? And I don't say that, yeah, I wouldn't say that most of these are nefarious or bad in intention in any way.
Right.
It simply is, how is our product doing from a business standpoint? And so if
Mhm.
you have those safeguards in place, the ones that Rachel mentioned, in terms of, do you have the right like compliance standards? Do you have the right type of account? I think all of these aspects work together to make the product even better. And as we're seeing with AI, the progression and the velocity of improvements is so, like, it's insane that
Yeah.
I think the adoption will get smoother. They'll remove more of that friction, and or they'll even anticipate kind of what the issues are. Because, having worked, in marketing, community management, customer success, there are people who will push right feedback to you, but they're just the tip of the iceberg compared to the whole audience, or like the user base that never like reaches out with feedback, and they just maybe kind of give it up right altogether. And so I think there is certainly a responsible way to gather kind of that product information, improve the user experience, but
Mhm.
also, to Rachel's point, and what, I stated earlier, it is on us as organizations, as teams, as companies, as project leads, to also say, do we have our safeguards in place? And this is a perfect example of safety is not an optional thing, in these implementation projects. Like safety has to be a co-pilot in this to ensure
Yes.
that whatever progress you make and whatever you are building does not get thrown out the window because, oops, you didn't do your due
Yes.
diligence, right, for whatever reason.
Yes.
And so that
Yes.
is, I mean, and that really goes into like cost savings. People see safety as like not generating revenue, or, it puts too much friction on like, improvements and evolution. But really having safety there ensures that the progress that you make is long term and sustainable, and you are going at a right velocity, for your
Yes.
team and also just ethically.
Yes. Yes. So many topics that you just shared, both of you. One of which I really appreciate, Rachel, the positive reframing of this type of information that becomes available now is in fact an opportunity for us to really discover what some of these gaps are and fix those business operations, which, as I think about my world, um, what that would do, it would go so far in being able to destigmatize having a bug, right? A lot of times people don't want to say to anyone, this integration isn't working. My CRM won't talk to my XYZ. And so they create these, at least in my field, elaborate workarounds that are so fragile. And if Lois leaves, that's it. This program literally will never work, and it'll be like the funding for a whole program in a department in university. So I appreciate that perspective. I hadn't even thought of that. Um, what you may have like an inside voice version of this, and then what you would actually say in reality. What are your thoughts on organizations that haven't yet dove in with training for their individual employees, and B, how work groups or departments, or then kind of moving up to the organization level, who haven't just made a deliberate decision to do training, and ever kind of leaving it to, it seems like just leaving it to their staff to kind of figure it out in their personal life, maybe. What are your thoughts on that? How would you handle a conversation about that, Rachel?
One of the facts of the market is if you're not providing your staff the tools to use during AI in their work, then they're using all the free tools available to do the work, at least 70%, right? So what you're protecting by not going into AI, by not giving your staff the tools that they need, means that your privacy is worse off, right? You rather give them the tools and say, these are the guardrails, this is the guidelines of what to do and what not to do, than not give them anything at all. Because with nothing, then they don't even have a line. Instead of taking my entire business strategy to ChatGPT, I can now know that I'm allowed to take the summary report that was sent. So meaning that company
Mm.
information can stay within the company while the teams are still using the tools. So if you're a company that hasn't started training your staff, encouraging your staff to do it, please do it. There's a lot of very free resources that are available for your staff, for your teams. It doesn't have to cost money. It can even be a Friday conversation instead of pizza lunches, pizza Fridays. Let's do 1 hour where we talk about AI.
Yeah.
And we don't know anything. We all don't know.
Yes.
Make a safe environment where people can come and say, I don't know, and then start from there.
I don't know. I don't know. Absolutely. It's so hard to say I don't know until somebody else says it. If we can be the people who roll in and say, I don't know. We are all learning together. I maybe am the fifth grader to the fourth graders at best. I think it helps a lot. Vanessa, what do you think about that? About companies diving in or not diving in with training?
I will say that I see a lot of organizations diving into the deep end and not training
Very
and
good.
not providing any resources, and they wonder why their initiatives are not gaining any traction. Um, I had a colleague I spoke with, and I think it's all the way down the organization, where this colleague was actually interviewing for a role, and in kind of the interview prep materials, it was very clear that we want this person to use AI, so show how you would use AI in this, instance. But at the same time, within this document, there's nothing about the company's AI policy, how they work with AI, what their tech stack is. And I found that really offensive, that
Mm.
that they would require this of an individual, but at the same time kind of not show, how they are present and kind of moving right in that direction. um again, I don't want to assume, but the way that it was positioned, it seemed very clear to me that they were kind of winging it. And to be fair, there's nothing wrong with, winging it to a certain degree, because we are on the frontier, right, of this technology and
Yes.
its application. But what I often encounter and see is that, like many sort of tech initiatives or tech, implementation, in the digital transformation side, um, a lot of their team is kind of left to their own devices, right,
Yes.
without sort of comprehensive training. And then when you couple that with AI, which is either very exciting, fear-inducing, or overwhelming, you suddenly have this insurmountable barrier to individual adoption, let alone key stakeholder buy-in.
Mhm.
Um, Oftentimes, I find that this jumping off into the deep end is predicated by a cousin to the "I don't know," instead of the owning up and the accountability of "I don't know, let's explore in these ways."
Yes.
It's the "I don't know, um, but I'm too scared to say I don't know because I'm supposed to be the decision maker.
Yes.
So I'm just going to pretend I know,
Yeah.
and hopefully other people will figure it out." And I've probably ticked off a lot of people who may be watching this. And I don't mean to trigger anyone's fear or insecurity, but, and to your point, to just kind of say, we are all figuring it out. Transparency from leadership and
Mm.
stakeholders to say, either I don't know either, let's learn together. Like, this is all, we are all exploring together within this set boundaries, within this work stream, within this vertical. Um, or to say, I don't know, so I am going to start exploring, and I will share with you what I am doing and the mistakes that I am making from like a leadership side.
Yes.
Whenever I see a company with a key stakeholder or a leader saying, this is how I've been using AI, then signals to other people within the organization, it's okay to use this tool and in this sort of use case. And it gives people something to either mirror or mimic, get a win, gain some confidence, gain some trust.
Yeah.
To do it without any of those examples or any of that guidance, is usually those organizations that tend to have a much lower success rate.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of my favorite things to do that turns out to be a necessity, because of buyer education is C-suite folks don't want to raise their hand and say to the entire organization, "I don't use AI," or "I don't know how," and they are high achieving and don't wanna be judged and thrive on external validation a lot of times, and, um, they will ask me, or I'll offer if I can sense it, to train them on the side before we dive in with a larger investment or training the rest of the teams. And that seems to give people not only like the confidence and the role modeling, but also a better sense of like what are they actually buying into when they say, "Yes, we want to hire you all to train all the people." It's like, "Okay, here's what is possible with this technology." And then if they can admit their fears. One of my clients, this was like a year ago, there we had a big meeting. It was about the aspect of adoption in IT. And this is where we learned how difficult it is to dive in with IT first. And now we really try not to. We really, if that's the ethos of the company, we're like just not the people, right? And it's just it just doesn't work very well. But really, really sweet interaction where the person who's the head of IT stayed after the meeting and said to me, I haven't told anybody this, but I actually am morally opposed to AI. And I'm now in charge of, or I'm on the team that's in charge of the rollout. It's like a real reminder that this is a valid and important demographic that we have to be focused on because we have some of our best employees who aren't down with this. So, what is that like? And then, how is that different from working with folks who are kind of apathetic or sort of like in this positive kind of denial of let's wait and see? And then, how do we work with our champions so that we just don't burn them out and make them have a second job of on top of everything else? They're also the AI rollout, champions. So it's been really interesting to see how we navigate these different kind of avatars, in the workplace. Okay, as we wrap up, how about if we share one thing that we would one thing that we would say to somebody who is on the sidelines wondering, what their tipping point is, wondering if they're going to use this AI thing, what would you recommend as a first step, Rachel?
I'll say it from my personal experience. Having worked with AI for
Yes.
many years and then ChatGPT 2022, and deciding to go to school in 2023 to focus on AI and business analytics was exactly that. I kind of felt like, oh my God, this is going to be great. And I don't know what's happening. I am clueless. I need to go back to school to figure it out. I played directly into the stereotype of women feel like they need to learn more to be able to get deeper into something.
Yes.
Um, and having taken that journey, I can positively say that I am still very new to AI. I'm still learning, and we are all going to, even though I have taken 1 year full-time study, I'm still clueless. It is still new. It is still changing. And if you start today, in 6 months, we will be on the same page, even though I started
Yes.
way before you. So
Oh, that is such a good
my
point.
encouragement is to everybody. And when you start, don't start with the tools. Please don't jump on the tools. There are too many. They
Mm,
confuse me. They confuse everybody. Ask anybody around you right now which is the best tool to use, and they'll rap for 10 minutes.
oh
That
my
tells you
gosh.
it's a mess. It's
Yes.
confused for all of us. So don't start with the
Mm,
tools. Start with questions. Start with understanding
yes.
use cases around you. Start
Yes.
understanding the interactions with AI that could benefit you and how. One marketing professor taught us to ask why until the next question is nothing else, until death, until the next answer is death. So there'll be maybe 50 whys for some people. Some of them will be 10. But ask all those questions. And when you have the questions, ask why, 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 until you get to the place where you feel, okay, I can start there. And when you do start small. Start with very basic experiments. Don't get caught up in the wind of everything. Find your own comfort. At the end of the day, whoever wins is who can show what they can do and how they can help the other person do it. It's not who did the most. And we can all do a lot of building, but in the end, if we're not materializing it and monetizing it, we might as well not do it. So start small, start with experiments, get yourself onto one niche that is good for you, that you can monetize, and then move from there. Most importantly, please start.
Oh, so good. So good. I don't know if you two have met Suzanne Welker Juergens yet, but she is she's the guru of don't start with the tools and here's how you think like a product manager, right? Like what
Yeah,
is the actual problem you're trying to solve? Let's
right.
start with that question before we start just like bullying ChatGPT into kind of sort of figuring that out for you, which usually takes running aground a few times. Vanessa, how about you? What would you say?
I mean, Rachel pretty much summed it up. I mean, I think so. I start with this. Number one, start with what you know. You can certainly use LLMs to explore curiosities, but to gain most traction, start with what you know, especially in a professional setting. AI and subject matter expertise is a winning combination to gain trust, to understand how this probabilistic bit of technology works. The second point is find a pain point. Find what you're stuck on.
Ooh,
Find where
okay.
there is not meaningful friction, where there is just frustrating friction, and use AI for that. And that's where you dig in deep and you ask questions and you become a toddler again
Yes.
and say, why? How do we
Why?
do this? The other bit is to not dump out your own sort of gut instinct and intuition. And
Mm,
if it surfaces as skepticism, you need to keep it there because remember that first point, you're leaning into what you know.
yes.
So, in this interaction and in this exploration, if something you know, something inside you, either cognitively or instinctively, is saying, that's kind of BS,
Yes.
or this doesn't really track, you need to show up and push back. Just because the AI provides it is not the end all be all.
Yes.
You need to discern if that output is what is actually correct. And
Yes.
then finally, what Rachel said 10,000 times over, stick to a tech stack. Do not get shiny object syndrome
Please.
because what is important isn't the tool, it is your critical thinking, your systems thinking, and your problem solving. If you continue to cultivate those things, it doesn't matter what company is going
Mm-mm.
to throw a different tool at you.
Mm-mm.
If you have that trained and compounding throughout your professional
Mhm.
journey, you will be able to learn and navigate
Yes.
anything that is offered in a tech stack.
Anything. That is the perfect way to go out on this is save your cognitive space, your brain calories, pour into one tool. There are plenty of backups. Let's just say your number one tool went away one day. Don't sweat it. There's 15 other ones, right? And there'll be more or there'll be fewer depending on, consolidations and aqua hires and all that kind of stuff. But one tool, learn the things, do yourself a favor, don't go for the shiny object. If it is better, it's better like such a tiny, tiny bit unless you are a super uber user, it's moot. It doesn't matter. This is very much good is so good enough. And today's the worst day that AI is ever going to be. So one tool. If you're stepping in off the sidelines, that's a really good place to start. I just want to thank you both. This has been such a great conversation. One of my favorite things about doing these lives is that I get to hang around with my friends and experience their brilliance. So thank you both for sharing that with our audience as well as me. I cannot wait for your talks at the Create conference. I appreciate you very, very much for your generosity. And for those of you who are out there, don't miss the opportunity. Check out sheleadsai.ai for a million different opportunities to engage, including the Create conference, because this is where your people are. That's where they are, and we are going to have a blast in Salt Lake City. So, you too. Thank you again. Have a beautiful yes, Rachel. You are brilliant. Vanessa, you are brilliant. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you and
everyone.
have a good day.